Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the great hall. The room was huge. 12 different alien species sat in a circle around her. Their eyes watched her every move. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some looked like nothing she had ever seen before. But all of them were looking at her like she was already dead. She was the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. For 3 years, she had worked hard to make friends among the stars. She had learned their languages. She had eaten their strange foods. She had laughed at jokes she did not understand. All because she believed that humans could find a place in this vast universe. But now, chains held her wrists. Guards stood on either side of her. And the Valkyrie High Counselor was reading a list of crimes she had never committed. The human known as Elena Vasquez is guilty of espionage, the Valkyrie said. His name was Dexarn. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and black eyes that showed no warmth. She has stolen military secrets from the Valkyrie Dominion. She has sent these secrets to Earth. The evidence is clear. Elena wanted to scream that it was all lies. She had seen the so-called evidence. It was fake. Anyone who looked closely could see the truth. But the Council did not want to look closely. The Valkyrie had too many friends here. Too many species owed them favors. Too many were afraid of them. I am innocent, Elena said. Her voice was calm, even though her heart was beating fast. The evidence has been created by the Valkyrie themselves. They fear humanity. They fear our growth. This trial is not about justice. It is about removing humans from the galactic stage. Dexarm made a sound that might have been a laugh. The human speaks of fear. How amusing. Why would we fear such a young species? You have been among the stars for only 40 years. We have ruled for thousands. Elena looked around the room. She saw some faces that seemed troubled. The Veshan representative would not meet her eyes. The Kreth ambassador was staring at the floor. They knew. They all knew this was wrong. But none of them would speak. Let us vote, Dexarn said. Those who find the human guilty? 8 hands rose. 8 species chose to believe the lies. 8 voices condemned her to death. Those who find the human innocent? Only 4 hands rose. The Veshans, the Kreth, the Morani, the small, quiet Pelax. They tried, but it was not enough. Dexarn smiled. At least, Elena thought it was a smile. On his alien face, it looked more like a wound opening. The Council has decided. The human Elena Vasquez is guilty of espionage against the Galactic Council. The sentence is death. The sentence will be carried out immediately. Elena felt the guards grab her arms. They began to drag her toward a platform at the edge of the room. A machine stood there. It was simple in design. A metal frame with a single beam emitter pointed at where a person would stand. A disintegration device. Clean. Quick. Final dot, she had one chance. One last moment to speak to her people. I request the right of final transmission, Elena said loudly. It is guaranteed by council law, even to the condemned. Dexarm paused. He looked annoyed, but he waved his hand. Very well. Let the humans say goodbye to her primitive world. It changes nothing. A small drone floated in front of Elena. A red light blinked on. She knew that across the vast distance of space, her words were being carried to Earth, to her home. To 12 billion people who had sent her here with such hope. She took a deep breath. People of Earth, she began. I am Elena Vasquez, your ambassador. In a few moments, I will be executed for crimes I did not commit. The Valkyrie have created false evidence against me. This council has chosen to believe those lies. I want you to know that I am not afraid. I have done my duty. I have represented humanity with honor. She paused. The guards were getting impatient. She could feel them pulling at her arms. "Do not let my death start a war," she continued. "We are better than—" The transmission cut off. The guards had deactivated the drone. They pushed her onto the platform. The metal frame rose around her. The beam emitter began to glow with a cold blue light. Elena looked at Dexon one last time. "You have made a terrible mistake," she said quietly. "You do not know what you have done." The Valkyrie laughed again. "I have removed a pest. Nothing more." The beam fired. Elena Vasquez, ambassador of Earth, disappeared in a flash of blue light. There was no sound, no cry of pain. She was simply there, and then she was not. All that remained was empty air and the faint smell of burning dot far away on a small blue planet circling an ordinary yellow star. 12 billion people had watched everything. The transmission had been broadcast on every screen, every device, every channel. Children had seen it. Parents had seen it. Soldiers and scientists and teachers and farmers had seen it. For 17 minutes, no one spoke. The entire planet fell silent. It was as if humanity itself had stopped breathing. Then the silence ended. In the United Earth Parliament, representatives from every nation gathered. They did not argue. They did not debate. For the first time in human history, there was no disagreement. The vote was called, and every single hand rose together. The Prime Minister of Earth stood before the cameras. Her face was hard. Her eyes were red from tears she refused to let fall. "The Galactic Council has murdered our ambassador," she said. "They have murdered an innocent woman. They have murdered our hope for peace. We gave them our hand in friendship, and they cut it off." She paused. The world waited. As of this moment, the United Earth Government declares a state of total war against the Valkyrie Dominion and all who support them. We will not stop until justice is served. We will not rest until every being responsible for this crime faces judgment. They wanted to teach humanity its place in the galaxy. Her voice dropped to something cold and terrible. We will teach them theirs. Across the planet, the machines of war began to wake. Factories shifted production. Soldiers reported for duty. Scientists opened files that had been sealed for decades. And in the darkness of space, in hidden places that no one had ever found, enormous shapes began to move. The galaxy had made a mistake. They had seen humanity smile. They had seen humanity cooperate. They had seen humanity eager to please. They had never seen humanity angry. They were about to learn why Earth had survived so long on its own. They were about to learn what humans could do when they stopped being nice. And they were about to learn that some lessons, once taught, could never be forgotten. Admiral Marcus Chun had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 32 years. He had commanded ships. He had trained officers. He had planned for wars that he hoped would never come. Now, standing on the bridge of his flagship, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Purpose. "Report," he said, calmly. His first officer, Commander Sarah Wells, pulled up the display. Numbers and images filled the screens around them. "Sir, full mobilization is at 60% and rising. All reserve units have been activated. The Hidden Fleet is coming online." Chun nodded. The Hidden Fleet. For 40 years, Earth had played a careful game. They had shown the galaxy only what they wanted the galaxy to see. A small defense force. A few hundred ships. Enough to protect Earth, but not enough to threaten anyone. It was all a lie. Behind the moons of Jupiter, inside hollowed asteroids, beneath the ice of distant dwarf planets, humanity had been building. Thousands of ships. Weapons that no alien had ever seen. Technology that Earth had kept secret, even as they traded lesser inventions with the Council races. The galaxy thought humans were children. New to space. Weak. Eager to fit in. They were wrong. What about the revenants? Chun asked. Commander Wells smiled grimly. All 6 are operational, Admiral. They are moving into formation now. The revenants. Chun still remembered when he first saw the plans for them. Ships so large that they made other dreadnoughts look like toys. Each one was 5 kilometers long. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. They had been built in secret over 20 years, hidden in the dark spaces between planets where no one ever looked. Good, Chun said. Set course for the Valkyrie border. All ships. The bridge crew moved with speed and focus. There was no panic, no fear, only cold determination. Every person on this ship had watched Ambassador Vasquez die. Every person had made the same silent promise. Never again. Far across the galaxy, on a space station orbiting the Valkyrie homeworld, Counselor Dexarm was having a very bad day. What do you mean, mobilization? He demanded. His aide, a young Valkyrie named Sorn, was shaking as he presented the intelligence reports. The humans are preparing for war, Counselor. Their entire planet is converted to military production. Factories are working day and night. They are building ships at an incredible rate. Dexarm waved his hand dismissively. Let them build. We have seen their fleet. A few hundred ships. We have thousands. They cannot possibly threaten us. Counselor. Sorn hesitated. There is more. Our deep space sensors have detected additional vessels. Many additional vessels. How many? Sorn swallowed hard. Current estimates suggest 12,000 warships. Possibly more. The room went silent. Dexarn stared at his aide as if the young Valkyrie had gone insane. That is impossible. Where would they hide such a fleet? We have watched their system for years. It appears they hid them inside asteroids and moons, Counselor. We never thought to look. We assumed what we saw was all they had. Dexarn felt something cold crawl up his spine. For the first time since he had ordered the human ambassador's death, he felt doubt. Show me. Sorn activated the display. Images appeared, taken by long-range sensors. Ships were emerging from asteroids like insects crawling out of their nests. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They formed up into battle groups and began to move with perfect coordination. And then the display showed something else. Something that made Dexarn take a step back. 6 massive shapes were rising from behind Jupiter's largest moons. They were cylindrical, armored, bristling with weapons. They were larger than anything the Valkyrie had ever built. Larger than anything anyone had ever built. What are those? Dexarn whispered. We don't know, Counselor. The humans call them revenants. Dexarn stared at the display for a long moment. Then he turned to his communications officer. Contact the council. We need an emergency session. Now. The council gathered within hours. Representatives from all 12 species appeared via holographic projection, their faces showing various degrees of concern. The Deshan ambassador looked almost smug. The Kreth representative refused to meet anyone's eyes. We must unite against this human threat, Dexarn declared. They have hidden an illegal fleet. They have prepared for war in secret. They are a danger to all of us. The Deshan ambassador spoke up. Her voice was cold. You killed their ambassador, Dexarn. You created false evidence to murder an innocent woman. And now you want us to help you? The evidence was legitimate, Dexarn insisted, but his voice had lost its confidence. The evidence was fake, and everyone here knows it, the Morani representative growled. He was a large being covered in brown fur, with teeth like knives. You wanted to stop human expansion. You were afraid they would become more powerful than you. So you killed their voice of peace. And now you face the consequences. They have 12,000 ships. You should have thought of that before you disintegrated Ambassador Vasquez. The meeting dissolved into arguments. The Velkari demanded military support. The Deshans and Marani refused. The Kreth tried to propose peace talks, but no one listened. The smaller species simply watched in silence, terrified of what was coming. Meanwhile, the human fleet continued its advance. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of his flagship. The Use Vasquez renamed 1 hour after the ambassador's death. Around him, the largest military force in human history moved through space like a great metal tide. Admiral, Commander Wells reported, "We have received a transmission from the Velkari. They are demanding that we turn back. They say any attack will be met with overwhelming force." Chun almost smiled. Almost. Overwhelming force. That's amusing. How would you like to respond, sir? Chun thought about Elena Vasquez. He had met her once years ago at a reception on Earth. She had been kind and funny and full of hope for the future. She had believed that humans could make friends among the stars. She had believed in peace. They had killed her for it. No response, Chun said. They will understand our answer soon enough. The fleet jumped to faster than light speed. Thousands of ships disappeared from Earth's solar system in a flash of light. They reappeared at the edge of Velkari space, right next to Outpost Sigma 7, a major military station. The Velkari defenders scrambled to respond. 200 warships moved to intercept. Defense platforms powered up their weapons. Commanders shouted orders and prepared for battle. They thought they were ready. They were not. Admiral Chun looked at the enemy formation on his display. Then he gave a single order. All ships, attack. The human fleet did not slow down. It did not form defensive lines. It did not wait for the enemy to make the first move. It simply surged forward like a wave of death, every ship firing at once. The Velkari had never seen anything like it. In 11 minutes, the battle was over. Outpost Sigma 7 was gone. 200 Velkari warships were scattered debris. And the human fleet had not even slowed down. Across the galaxy, the other species watched the battle recordings in stunned silence. This was not how wars were fought. There was no honor in this. No ritual. No challenge and response. This was annihilation. And it was only the beginning. The destruction of Outpost Sigma 7 sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Every species with access to sensors watched the battle recordings. They watched the human fleet arrive without warning. They watched it attack without hesitation. They watched 200 Velkari warships disappear in 11 minutes, and they began to understand something terrible. The humans they had known for 40 years, the friendly ones, the curious ones, the ones who smiled and traded and tried so hard to make friends. Those humans had been wearing a mask. Behind that mask was something else. Something ancient. Something forged by millions of years of survival on a harsh and competitive world. The humans had not come to the stars because they were peaceful. They had come because they had already won every war on their own planet. They were the survivors, the apex predators, the ones who had climbed to the top of a world that tried to kill them at every turn. And now they were angry. Admiral Chun stood in the command center of the UE's Vasquez, watching the tactical display update in real time. Red dots represented Velkari forces. They were retreating on every front. Sigma 12 has fallen, Commander Wells reported. Sigma 9 is under heavy assault. The Velkari Third Fleet is pulling back to their inner systems. Casualties? Chun asked. Minimal on our side, sir. The Velkari have lost approximately 800 ships since we began operations. Chun nodded. 800 ships in 3 days. The Velkari had started this war with roughly 4,000 vessels in their navy. At this rate, they would have nothing left within 2 weeks. Send a message to the council, Chun ordered. Make sure every species receives it. What would you like to say, Admiral? Chun turned to face the communications array. When he spoke, his voice was calm and cold. This is Admiral Marcus Chun of the United Earth Fleet. 3 days ago, your council executed Ambassador Elena Vasquez on false charges. You murdered an innocent woman. You murdered our hope for peace. Now you will face the consequences. He paused, letting the words sink in. Humanity demands the following. First, the immediate dissolution of the Valkyrie Dominion's military forces. Second, the arrest and surrender of all officials involved in Ambassador Vasquez's trial and execution. Third, a formal acknowledgement from the Council that the charges against Ambassador Vasquez were fabricated. You have 1 standard week to comply. If these demands are not met, we will continue our advance until there is no Valkyrie military left to destroy. We will continue until every person responsible for this crime is brought to justice. We will continue until the galaxy understands that human lives are not cheap. He straightened his uniform. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Chun out. The message spread across the galaxy within hours. It was played in council chambers and military headquarters. It was discussed in homes and schools and markets. Everyone had an opinion about what the humans had said, but opinions did not matter. Only actions mattered. And the humans were very good at action. The Valkyrie tried to fight back. They gathered their remaining fleets and launched a counterattack at the human supply lines. It was a good strategy. It might have worked against another enemy. It did not work against humans. Admiral Chun had expected the counterattack. He had planned for it. When the Valkyrie fleet arrived at what they thought was a vulnerable target, they found not supply ships but a wall of human warships waiting for them. The battle lasted 45 minutes. The Valkyrie lost another 500 ships. The humans lost 12. After that, the Valkyrie stopped trying to counterattack. On the Valkyrie homeworld, panic was setting in. The streets were filled with people demanding answers. Why had the Council started this war? Why had they killed the human ambassador? Why had they been so stupid? Councilor Thexarn had no answers. He sat in his private chambers, watching the news reports with growing despair. Everything he had built was falling apart. The dominion that had ruled for thousands of years was crumbling in less than a week. His aide, Sorn, entered the room. The young Valkyrie looked exhausted. Counselor, the humans have taken Sigma 4. Our defensive line has collapsed. They will reach the homeworld within days. Thexarn closed his eyes. How did this happen, Sorn? We were so sure they were weak. So sure they could not threaten us. Sorn was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that Thexarn would remember for the rest of his life. We saw what we wanted to see, Counselor. The humans showed us their merchants and their diplomats and their scientists. They showed us their smiles and their handshakes and their gifts. And we thought that was all they were. But it was not all they were. No, Counselor. It was just the surface. Beneath that surface, they are something else entirely. They have fought each other for their entire history. They have survived ice ages and plagues and disasters that would have destroyed other species. They have learned to be kind because they chose to be kind, not because they had to be. And now what? Now they have chosen to stop being kind. The week passed quickly. The council argued endlessly about how to respond to the human demands. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to simply surrender and hope for mercy. In the end, it did not matter what they wanted. The humans did not wait for an answer. On the 8th day, the human fleet arrived at the Valkyrie homeworld. It was an armada unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of warships arranged in perfect formation. And at the center, the 6 massive revenants, their weapons pointed at the planet below. The Valkyrie defense fleet, what was left of it, moved to intercept. 300 ships against 3,000. Everyone knew how it would end, but Admiral Chun did not order an immediate attack. Instead, he opened a channel to the planet. "People of the Valkyrie homeworld," he said, "we have not come to destroy you. We have come for justice. Your government murdered an innocent woman. They must answer for that crime. If they surrender now, if they give us the people responsible, we will spare your world. You have 1 hour to decide." The Valkyrie government panicked. Some officials tried to flee. Some tried to hide. Some tried to negotiate. Counselor Dexarn did none of these things. Instead, he walked to the communication center and broadcast a message of his own. "People of the Dominion," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. "I am Dexarn, High Counselor of the Valkyrie. 40 days ago, I ordered the execution of the human ambassador, Elena Vasquez. I did this because I was afraid. I was afraid of humanity, afraid of their growth, afraid of their potential. I created false evidence to justify her death. I convinced the council to support me. And now, because of my fear, our civilization faces destruction." He paused, taking a shaking breath. "I was wrong. Elena Vasquez was innocent. The humans were innocent. And I committed a terrible crime against them. I am prepared to face the consequences of that crime. I surrender myself to human justice. I only ask that they spare our people, who had no part in my decisions." The transmission ended. Across the Valkyrie homeworld, people watched in stunned silence. Their leader, the most powerful man in the Dominion, had just confessed to murder and fraud. On the bridge of the U.S. Vasquez, Admiral Chun watched the recording with no expression. "Sir?" Commander Wells asked carefully. "What are your orders?" Chun thought about Elena Vasquez. He thought about her final words, cut off by the guards. "Do not let my death start a war. We are better than what? Better than revenge? Better than anger? Better than the darkness that lived in every human heart? No, they were not better than that darkness. But they could choose what to do with it. Accept the surrender," Chun said finally. "Send forces to take Dexarn and the other officials into custody. But the civilians are not to be harmed. No looting. No revenge attacks. We came for justice, not genocide. And if some of our soldiers disagree," Chun's voice turned to ice, "then they will be court-martialed and punished. We are not monsters, Commander. We are just very, very angry. There is a difference. The Valkyrie homeworld did not burn that day, but the Valkyrie Dominion ended all the same, and the galaxy watched and wondered what humanity would do next." The war was over, but the aftermath was just beginning. Human soldiers walked the streets of the Valkyrie capital. They did not shoot. They did not steal. They simply watched, their weapons ready but silent. The Valkyrie people stared at them with a mixture of fear and confusion. They had expected monsters. They had expected revenge. They had not expected discipline. Admiral Chun established his headquarters in the same building where the Galactic Council had met, where Elena Vasquez had stood in chains, where she had died. He chose this location on purpose. Every decision he made would happen in the shadow of her memory. "The prisoners are secure, Admiral," Commander Wells reported. "Dexarn and 47 other officials have been taken into custody. They are being held in separate facilities to prevent communication." "Good. What about the Valkyrie military?" "Surrendering in large numbers, sir. We have accepted the surrender of over 600 ships in the past 2 days. Per your orders, the crews are being released after disarmament. The ships are being destroyed." Chun nodded. This was important. The Valkyrie Dominion would never threaten anyone again. But the Valkyrie people would survive. They would rebuild. They would learn. And the Council? he asked. Wells hesitated. The council has formally dissolved itself, sir. The Deshans and Morani have withdrawn their membership. The Kreth have requested permission to send diplomats. The smaller species are waiting. Waiting for what? To see what we do next, sir. That was the question, was it not? What would humanity do next? They had won the war. They had captured the people responsible for Elena's death. They had destroyed the Velkari military. They could do anything they wanted now. Chun looked out the window at the alien city below. Millions of Velkari lived there. Families. Children. People who had nothing to do with the council's decision. People who were just as innocent as Elena had been. Arrange a meeting with the Deshan and Kreth ambassadors, he said. We have work to do. The trials began 2 weeks later. They were held in a converted hall in the Volcari capital. Judges from 3 species presided. 2 humans, 1 Deshan, and 1 Morani. The Velkari had requested that their own people be allowed to judge their former leaders, but humanity refused. The crimes were against humanity. Humans would be involved in the judgment. Counselor Dexarn was the first to stand trial. He entered the hall in simple prisoner's clothing. No guards had beaten him. No torturer had visited his cell. He had been fed properly, given medical care, allowed to speak with legal representatives. The humans had treated him better than he had treated Elena Vasquez. This somehow made everything worse. The chief prosecutor was a human woman named Dr. Yuki Tanaka. She had been Elena's friend at the diplomatic academy. She had cried for days after watching Elena die. Now her face showed nothing but calm focus. Counselor Dexarn, she began, you are charged with murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fabrication of evidence, and abuse of power. How do you plead? Dexarn stood straight. Whatever his crimes, he still had some pride left. I plead guilty to all charges. A murmur went through the hall. The judges exchanged glances. You understand that a guilty plea will not reduce your sentence? The human chief judge asked. I understand. I also understand that I am guilty. I ordered the creation of false evidence. I manipulated the council vote. I watched Elena Vasquez die and felt satisfaction. I was wrong. I do not deserve mercy. Dr. Tanaka studied him for a long moment. Why did you do it, counselor? Why did you fear humanity so much that you killed an innocent woman? Dexarn was silent. Then, slowly, he began to speak. The Volcari have ruled this region of space for 3,000 years. We built an empire. We conquered enemies. We believed we were the greatest species in the galaxy. And then the humans arrived. He shook his head slowly. At first, we laughed at you. So young, so eager, so desperate to make friends. We thought you were like children playing among adults. But then we watched you. We saw how fast you learned. We saw how quickly your technology advanced. We saw the fire in your eyes when you faced challenges. And we became afraid. In 40 years, you had nearly caught up to technology we had developed over thousands of years. In 40 years, your population had spread to 12 worlds. In 40 years, you had become one of the most dynamic species in the known galaxy. We calculated that within another 100 years, you would surpass us completely. So you decided to stop us, Dr. Tanaka said. Yes, I believed that if we removed your voice of peace, you would retreat. I believed you would realize that the galaxy was too dangerous for you. I believed you would go back to your own system and leave us alone. He laughed bitterly. I was a fool. I thought I understood humans because I had studied your diplomats and traders. I did not realize that you had sent us your kindest faces, your gentlest souls. I did not understand that behind them stood warriors who had conquered their own world. The trial lasted 3 days. In the end, Dexarn was found guilty on all counts. The sentence was death, by the same method he had used on Elena Vasquez. He did not protest. He did not beg. When they led him to the disintegration chamber, he walked with his head held high. His last words were broadcast across the galaxy. "I hope that my death brings some peace to the humans I wronged. And I hope that future generations will remember this day. Remember what happens when fear controls us. Remember what happens when we choose murder over understanding." The beam fired. Counselor Thexarn ceased to exist. 46 other officials faced trial over the following months. Most were sentenced to life imprisonment on isolated colonies. A few, who had only followed orders without understanding the conspiracy, were given lighter sentences. 3 others who had actively participated in creating the false evidence were executed alongside Thexarn, but the trials were only part of what humanity did throughout the months of legal proceedings. Human diplomats were busy. They met with representatives from every species in the former council. They listened to concerns. They answered questions. They proposed something new. Admiral Chun himself presented the proposal to the gathered species. The Galactic Council failed, he said simply. It failed because it had no real justice system. It failed because powerful species could bully weaker ones. It failed because the life of one innocent woman meant nothing compared to political convenience. We propose a new charter, a new alliance, one built on principles. That actually means something. He activated a display, showing the key points. First, no member species may execute the citizen of another member species without unanimous approval from all members. Any violation of this rule is automatically considered an act of war. Second, an independent court system will handle all disputes between species. Judges will be selected from neutral species with no stake in the outcome. Third, evidence presented in any trial must be verified by at least 3 independent parties. Fabricated evidence will be treated as a crime equal to whatever crime it was meant to prove. Fourth, every species has 1 vote, regardless of size or power. A species with 1 trillion citizens has the same voice as one with 1 billion. The gathered representatives studied the proposal carefully. Some immediately saw the benefits. Others had concerns. The Marani ambassador spoke first. "This seems fair. But what guarantees do we have that humanity will follow these rules? You have shown us your strength. What stops you from becoming the new Velkari?" Chum nodded. "A fair question. The answer is that we will build safeguards into the charter itself. Any species that violates these principles, including humanity, faces the same consequences. We are not asking for power. We are asking for justice. And if we refuse to join, then you are free to remain independent. We will not force anyone to participate. But we believe that together, we can build something better than what came before. Something worth believing in." The discussions continued for weeks. Some species joined immediately. Others needed more convincing. But slowly, carefully, a new alliance began to take shape. They called it the Vasquez Accords, named for the woman whose death had made it necessary. Elena would have hated that name. She would have said she did not deserve such an honor. But the galaxy disagreed. And humanity, for the first time since the war began, started to hope again. 20 years had passed since the war. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The old council was gone, replaced by the Vasquez Accords, an alliance of 43 species bound by principles of justice and equality. Trade flourished between worlds that had once viewed each other with suspicion. Cultural exchanges brought new ideas and new friendships across the stars. The Velkari still existed, though they were a shadow of their former selves. Their military had never been rebuilt. Their empire had been divided into independent regions. Some of their people had joined the new alliance. Others lived quietly on their homeworld, teaching their children about the mistakes of the past. Humanity had changed too. After the war, there had been long debates about what to do with the military. Some wanted to keep the massive fleet ready for any future threat. Others argued that such power was dangerous, that it would corrupt humanity the way it had corrupted the Valkyrie. In the end, they chose a middle path. The fleet was reduced, but not eliminated. The Revenant-class dreadnoughts were placed in reserve, hidden once again in the dark spaces between planets. Most soldiers returned to civilian life, carrying medals they rarely showed anyone, but they never forgot. None of them forgot. Admiral Marcus Chen retired 3 years after the war. He had done his duty. He had delivered justice for Elena Vasquez. Now he wanted peace. He bought a small house on the coast of what had once been called Japan. He spent his days gardening and reading and watching the ocean. Sometimes old friends visited. Sometimes young officers came to ask his advice. He welcomed them all with tea and quiet wisdom. But once a year, on the anniversary of Elena's death, he left his home and traveled across the stars. The memorial stood in the exact spot where Elena had died. The old council hall had been preserved as a museum, a reminder of what had happened and why. In the center of the main chamber, where the disintegration platform had once stood, there was now a statue. It showed Elena Vasquez as she had been. In life, standing tall, her hand extended in greeting, a gentle smile on her face. She wore her ambassador's uniform, the same one she had worn on that final day. Her eyes looked toward the future with hope and kindness. At the base of the statue, carved in both human script and the languages of all Alliance members, was an inscription. We came in peace. We were answered with murder. We responded with fire. Let this monument remind all who see it. Humanity's greatest wish is friendship. But those who mistake our kindness for weakness will learn the difference between the two. Every year, thousands of beings visited the memorial. Humans came to pay their respects. Members of other species came to understand what had happened. Young students came with their teachers to learn about history. And every year, Admiral Chen came alone. He was old now. His hair was white. His steps were slow, but his mind remained sharp, and his memories remained clear. On this day, the 20th anniversary, the memorial was especially crowded. Delegations from across the Alliance had gathered. Speeches had been made. Ceremonies had been performed. Now, as the sun set over the alien city, the crowds began to thin. Chun waited until most of them had left. Then he approached the statue. He stood before Elena's carved face for a long moment. 20 years. It felt like both an eternity and a heartbeat. He could still remember her voice, her laugh, the way she had believed in the best of every species she met. "I'm sorry, Elena," he said quietly. "I'm sorry we could not save you. I'm sorry you had to die for us to learn this lesson." The statue did not respond. Of course it did not respond, but Chun continued anyway. "The Alliance is strong now. 43 species working together. Real justice, real equality. I think you would be proud of what we built, even if you would hate that we named it after you." He managed a small smile at that. "I keep thinking about what you tried to say at the end. Do not let my death start a war. We are better than—" He paused, his voice catching slightly. "Better than what, Elena? I have wondered about that for 20 years. Better than revenge? Better than anger? Better than the darkness inside us? I do not think you were right. We are not better than those things. We have all of them inside us. The rage, the violence, the capacity for terrible destruction. We proved that when we burned our way across Valkyrie space. But maybe that was not what you meant." He looked up at the statue's kind eyes. "Maybe you meant that we are better than letting those things control us. Better than letting fear and anger make our choices. Better than becoming the monsters others expect us to be. We chose to stop, Elena. We had the power to destroy them all, and we chose to stop. We chose justice instead of genocide. We chose to build instead of burn. We chose to be better. I hope that is what you meant. I hope we made you proud." A soft footstep behind him made him turn. A young human woman stood there, wearing the uniform of the diplomatic corps. She could not have been more than 25. "Admiral Chun?" she said carefully. "I'm sorry to disturb you. I just wanted to say, I joined the diplomatic service because of her. Because of Ambassador Vasquez. She is why I am here." Chun studied her face. Bright eyes, strong determination, a genuine belief in the possibility of peace. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lieutenant Maya Reyes, sir. I have been assigned to the Dacian embassy. The Dacians are good people. They stood by us when others did not." "Yes, sir. I know the history." Chun nodded slowly. "Tell me, Lieutenant Reyes, do you know why Ambassador Vasquez was killed?" The young woman hesitated. "Because the Valkyrie feared us, sir. Because they saw our potential and wanted to stop us before we became too strong." "That is correct. But do you know what she would have said about that?" Lieutenant Reyes shook her head. Chun turned back to the statue. "She would have said that fear is natural, that it is part of being alive. The Valkyrie were not evil for being afraid. They were only evil for letting that fear turn them into murderers." He placed his hand on the base of the statue. "Remember that, Lieutenant. When you meet species who fear humanity, do not judge them for their fear. Judge them only by their actions. Give them the chance to choose differently than the Valkyrie did. Give them the chance to be better. And if they choose wrong?" Chun's expression hardened for just a moment. "Then we remind them why that was a mistake. But we give them the chance first. Always. That is what Elena would have wanted. That is what makes us human." He stepped back from the statue and straightened his old uniform jacket. Then he raised his hand in a salute. "We did not forget you, Elena. We never will." He held the salute for a long moment. Then he lowered his hand, turned, and walked slowly toward the exit. Lieutenant Reyes watched him go. Then she turned to face the statue herself. The carved woman looked down at her with that gentle smile, hands still extended in greeting after all these years. Reyes did not know what words to say. So instead, she simply made a promise. The same promise that thousands of diplomats before her had made. "I will do better. I will be kind. I will reach out my hand in friendship. And if someone tries to cut it off, I will make sure they regret it." Outside the memorial, the sun finished setting. Stars began to appear in the alien sky. Ships moved between them, carrying people of 100 different species about their daily lives. The galaxy was at peace. It was a peace bought with blood and fire and the death of one innocent woman. But it was real. It was lasting. And it was worth protecting. Somewhere, Elena Vasquez's spirit smiled. Her death had started a war. But in the end, it had built something greater than she ever could have imagined. It had built a galaxy where kindness and strength walked hand in hand. A galaxy that remembered. A galaxy that would never forget.